All right, Mayor Board, are you all ready to go this evening? I apologize for being a couple minutes late. This is David Smoke, Town Administrator for the Town of Farragut, and we are going to be starting our Board of Mayor and Aldermen workshop tonight. We are going to be talking about the town's budget. This is the first of a series of workshops we'll have over the next several months, talking about different aspects of the budget. The first meeting we always have is just really to cover what the departments have requested as far as expenditures, what we think that some of our initial revenues will be for the town based on projections. And just, it's really a snapshot, kind of giving a health picture to our budget at this point in time in the year, knowing that we're going to have some things to add, some things to take away, adjust over the next couple of months, and also talking about different types of budgets. So tonight's budget that we're going to be talking about is the general fund, and the general fund is the one that basically we run most of our operations off of for the town. It's our largest budget by far, and it's also the one where we take in obviously the most revenues based on sales tax and the different revenue streams that we have. The process that we go through each and every year to work on the budget first starts with department heads. We get together and talk about priorities for the year. We do all this based on reviewing of our strategic plan and what that strategic plan means for our town. A few years ago, the board, through the process, talked about our vision, which is Farragut redefining quality of life with a beautiful, close-knit, connected community where families and businesses thrive. Every time we talk about prioritizing things in our budget, we try to make sure that we're doing things that will help us reach this vision for our town. Back on February 19th, the Board of Mayor and Aldermen did meet and prioritize several different things for our town. And in prioritizing those aspects of things, we also wanted to talk about and focus on our mission and our values. You see that on your screen there. We want to make sure that the mission of the town is always being accomplished by being a dedicated team committed to integrity, innovation, and friendly service. It's important that our employees are a big part of what we do in our town, and we want to make sure that they're a big part of our budgeting process and thought process about how we can get things done in our community. Our final step in that strategic planning process is our critical success factors, and each one of these critical success factors basically like a goal. What are our goals for our town for this next year, for the next 3, 4, 5 years? How are we going to accomplish these things? And we set off and look at different priorities of these success factors. You're going to hear me talk a lot about this tonight during the board meeting, because we're actually going to have the board approve your strategic plan for this next FY 2022 year. But there's a lot of great things as part of our critical success factors. And again, we ask departments to make sure that when they request things, when they look at projects, that their goals are being met, and it's part of the critical success factor that's being taken care of each and every year. So I wanted to kind of walk the board through basically 1 year ago today is when we had our first workshop for the budget in FY 20. And I know that's been a while, but if you recall at that point, things looked great for FY 20. We had a good budget. We had a better estimate going into the March 12th meeting of 2020. We really saw revenues increasing quite a bit off of our budget process. We were being very cautious with our expenditures at that time as well. And then, of course, what everybody has been dealing with for the last year, COVID hit our country and hit our local economy. And we had to really jump back and right in the middle of our budget process, revise our budget for FY 20 based on the fact that we did not know what our sales tax revenues were going to be. We didn't know what our wholesale beer, liquor, wine taxes, all the different things that we rely on for revenue. We just didn't know what that was going to be, not only for FY 20, but also heading into FY 2021. So we revised our FY 20 estimates down quite a bit. In fact, we went down to 11.7 million in revenue and 7.1 million in expenditures for that final revision for FY 20. The good thing is, if we look at the actual numbers that came in for FY 20, the revenues were actually up higher than we had anticipated. That came in around $13.1 million. And the departments did a fantastic job. When COVID hit, we immediately cut out around $300,000 out of our budget to try to make sure that we were being as lean as possible heading into this fiscal year that we're in. And they were able to not just do that, but do it well. They cut out even more than that when it's all said and done. So they did a phenomenal job. But what does that mean? So we go into the FY21 approved budget that was extremely lean. We had basically flattened revenues on sales tax and everything heading into the 2021 budget year. We did have some expenditures for just a couple of new personnel changes that we had to have based on new things we were having to take care of and maintain. But overall, we still had a healthy revenue over expenditure balance there, from 10.7 million in revenue to 7.28 million in expenditures. When we look at and we estimate what we think this current fiscal year that we're in, 2021, where we're going to be with revenues and where we're going to be with expenditures, again, what we're seeing is over the last several months, and I'll go into detail in each of these areas, over the last several months, we have had a very much a positive influx of sales tax dollars into the community. We've had a very good halls tax, which has helped with this number as well. And our expenditures have again been able to be maintained right where our budget was. So what does all that mean heading into FY 2022? Again, we'll talk through the numbers in much more detail here in a minute. But what it shows is that we're being conservative in our estimates for revenue for FY 2022. We do think that we will have a positive area in most of our revenue streams, and I'll explain a little bit of why that may look slightly down. But then what we haven't done now for a year and a half is we have not had some of the positions that we had budgeted for, frankly, weren't needed this year because of maybe like community center being a great example. We haven't had the community center open to a lot of functions and events throughout this year. We anticipate that coming back next year, so we know we're going to need some more personnel to handle those areas. So those are some things that you're going to see. We haven't done much training, frankly, for personnel over the last year plus, and so we definitely need to look at those areas. So we'll move on and look at in general the general fund revenues as we see them for, again, estimated FY 2021 and also proposed FY 21-22. And when I get done with this slide, I'll step back for a second. I know we're on a video conference here, and certainly take any questions and try to slow that process up so you can ask questions along the way. But what we see for estimated local sales tax, you can see the numbers are looking positive over what our budget was. Certainly proposed for next year is going to be a slight increase. Overall, from budget of 2021 to propose, we're right at about $1.7 million in additional revenue there. So that's a good trend heading into the 2022 fiscal year. One of the things that we had, one of the revenues that we had this past year in FY20 was the CARES Act funding. We had a couple different streams of revenue that came in, and all those were used for expenditures based on the CARES Act. This was for equipment, PPE, supplies. We totaled about $143,000 to the general fund for those. Again, those came in and went straight out as expenditures. And in tourism, we had another almost $62,000 in revenue based on Light the Park and the Open Doors advertising that we did there from probably around September through the end of December of 2020. That was specific for tourism related funds, and that would have been in the tourism fund. But again, we spent all those monies and were reimbursed all those monies from the state based on our CARES Act funding. Our largest revenue stream that we receive each year is the local sales tax. We focused really the last two fiscal years and really projected for FY 2022 if you look at the kind of the purple line on your screen, you can see the ebbs and flows in the sales tax, where it comes from each kind of month. The biggest one being in January, which is the December revenues that we get from Christmas. And then you see a pretty steep drop off there in February and January, or February and March, as people then start to get back into the economy. What we typically would see is that in May, those numbers should be relatively even. They shouldn't be dipping down too much. But obviously last May, which would have been April, we had our economy shut down. You can see the big dip that occurred there. In FY 2021, which is the black line, we've seen about a 5.4% increase in sales tax so far this fiscal year. And if I could paint a picture for you, what we had starting in January of 2020 was actually a 8-month process where we had negative sales tax growth over the prior year's month. So we had these 8 straight months of negative sales tax returns. And then all of a sudden in September of 2020, we've now had 5 straight months of positive sales tax returns. The good thing in my mind is this is all pre-COVID. All of the time frames that we're looking at right now is pre-COVID. So if we can continue this momentum heading into the next 6 months, then I think certainly our budget and our local sales tax numbers going forward are going to be even higher than what we anticipate right now.
But you want it. But you want it.
Janet, oh, there she goes.
I think we had an imposter come in here real quick, and I'm just kidding. So overall, though, board, I feel very good that we have a conservative number in the budget for sales tax, but I also think that we should feel pretty confident about where it's going to be for this year. And then we have projected a 2% increase in sales tax heading into FY 2022. So I'll pause here for a minute. Are there any questions about sales tax or any revenues we talked about so far? And if not, I'll move on. All right. Our next revenue and our second largest revenue stream that the town has is state shared taxes. These state shared taxes come from a variety of places in the state budget. Most of these are based on population count. So for our census, which would have been great to get before the end of July or before June 30th, I do not think that's going to happen. It looks like we're not going to get census numbers back toward the end of the year. And then when we get those new numbers, this will help us out. Basically, if we're as a growing community, we'll get more dollars out of the state based on our higher census count. But for right now, it's still based on 22,600. You can see here that we do project a little bit of an increase next year in state shared revenue. The one big difference that is noticeable here is there's a new line called sports betting and gaming. This is something that we have not had in the budget before. The state has a new revenue coming from that. I really don't anticipate it being a very large revenue coming to us, but the things we can use that for are local infrastructure projects, which include transportation, road projects, and public buildings. Again, I think we'll have no problem spending money in those 3 areas, but that's a small area that is starting to come up. And as that industry gets larger in Tennessee, then certainly we'll see more from that. And that's also based, again, on population. So a large portion of that goes to the general fund. Another portion of that goes to our state street aid fund for road improvement projects, resurfacing projects, and we'll get into that budget at another date. All right, the other big item that we have this year is our hall income tax. You can see the hall tax over the last 4 fiscal years, actually. The hall tax has been slowly going away. It may not look like that according to our budget, but it's been dropping 1% per year. And then FY 2022, the year that we're planning for, will be the last year that we get halls tax from the state of Tennessee. Again, if the halls tax, for those of you who don't know, is the only income tax that the state has based on investment income. for those. And so they decided several years ago to get rid of that tax and eliminate that. So we always budget this very conservatively because we just don't know how much we're going to get. We have, over the last several years, been allocating the Halls tax for capital projects. We knew this was not going to be a recurring revenue stream long term. So we started doing that several years ago, and I think that's worked out well. So that way we're not planning for this into the future when it comes to an operational standpoint. But certainly it will hurt not having this additional revenue for capital projects. Our next revenue stream is our wholesale beer, wholesale liquor, and mixed drink tax. There were some changes made to the wholesale beer tax over back, I think, in FY18. You can kind of see where in FY19 that impacted the town. And then in FY20, which would have been part of that, would have been obviously COVID related. We did see an influx in the mixed drink tax as well as the wholesale beer tax as well. So things did improve. We see that kind of trending in the same direction over this year and next year. So we're projecting those as being relatively flat taxes over the next couple of years, just not knowing exactly where that will head into the future. Another revenue stream for the town is intergovernmental, and there's many different things that make up the intergovernmental, but the largest part is the cable TV franchise tax and the TVA gross receipts tax. Again, these have been very steady streams of revenue for the town over the last decade or more. One of the things we've been looking at with obviously fiber and cable TV and internet being changed the way people buy and look at TV now. We're trying to determine where's our cable TV franchise taxes going. And, fortunately or unfortunately, if you're a TDS or Charter subscriber, they raise rates every year. So as they do that, that tends to leave that revenue stream pretty flat for the town. So we have not seen a decrease in that area as of yet. But overall, we project the proposed FY 2022 budget to be right at $700,000 in revenue from this intergovernmental taxes. Another revenue stream that really fluctuates based on the economy, based on what's going on in our community, are the building permits and license revenue. Again, you can see this has kind of been up and down over the last several years. But what we have seen with the estimated 2021 budget is we have a lot of housing projects going on in town. There are even some commercial projects that are underway. And then in proposed FY 2022, we don't really see that stopping anytime soon. We have a lot of residential projects that continue to be finished out, as well as many projects that will be before the Planning Commission here in the next few months. And that includes not only residential, but also commercial projects too. So we do see that being an encouraging sign that at least our local economy with housing and commercial is still robust and is heading in the right direction. So if we look at overall how our revenue streams are divided up, you can see that the local sales tax makes up the largest percent by far at 57% of our revenue stream. The state sales tax, which again is based on population, makes up 17%. And then the wholesale drink tax and kind of goes down the line. Obviously, as the economy gets better with sales tax revenues, the town does great. When we have, months where, economy gets shut down, things like that happen, that has a direct impact on our revenues and how we can perform. Overall total revenue for FY 2022, we project at $12.258 million. And so the final slide I wanted to show you on revenue for general fund is based on just a 10-year screenshot of where we've been. You can see we've had a good positive increase in revenue over that time period. Again, as I said earlier in the presentation, we always propose kind of what we're going to do next fiscal year very conservatively. That way, in case we don't hit our number, we're able to continue to do all the services that we need to do based on where we're at in our budget process. But we have been able to hit those numbers, and we feel very confident that we'll be able to hit those next year. So I'll pause there again for a minute before I get into expenditures and just ask if there's any specific questions from the board at this time on revenues that we were looking at.
David Scott here. So just a quick question. If a developer applies for a TIF with the county, does that impact any of the revenue to the town? I think the answer is no, but I want to confirm.
It does not. The town does not have a property tax. And so that's really with a TIF or a pilot. That's what they're asking the county to do, is forego some of their property taxes to be able to put that into the project in form of infrastructure, things like that. And the town's perspective, it doesn't impact us from that side of things, because we obviously do not have a property tax.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
That's all I have.
All right, we will move on to general fund expenditures. So obviously with revenues, we also have expenditures that we have to provide for our community with different functions from our different departments. Again, this is a snapshot. This is usually the department heads have kind of sent in what they request to do for next year. We haven't dived into all of these areas yet, and that's why you have the numbers you have on your screen for proposed and estimated so far. But what it does show is that there's a lot of catching up that probably we do need to do in this year's budget that we have not done in FY20 and even the FY 2021, frankly, as we've really flattened our budget over the last couple of years. So there's a couple things. One is health insurance, and I'll talk you through that a little bit. Blue Cross Blue Shield is who we currently use for health insurance purposes. They are getting out of Network S, which is what we are currently in. And so we know getting into their Network P or going a different route, depending on who we use, could be a pretty significant increase in our cost. And so we're getting those numbers. We won't have those for another probably 6 weeks or so. But we do have about 11% increase in health insurance projected in what you see, the numbers you see right now. Also, as I mentioned earlier, there were several personnel positions that we had anticipated needing in this year's budget. We did not need those, so we didn't have them in this year's expenditures, but we certainly anticipate needing those back in the FY 2022 budget. And also, training for employees. That's something that we have really, for those that were certified or needed certifications, we've certainly allowed them to continue doing training in those areas. But anything else that people needed for training purposes, especially travel purposes for training, was cut out of the budget last year. I think a lot of that is certainly trying to get people back up to speed on the training that they need to do their jobs effectively. And then finally, there's just a lot of just consulting things, a lot of project things that each department will be looking at internally that we did not do in FY 2021. That, again, we need to try to catch up, back up on and start back in FY 2022. So we'll get into all the details of that as we get through the budget process, but that just gives you a snapshot of some of the changes that we're looking at heading into this next fiscal year. When you look at a break,
question.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead. Back on the other slide. So for for the budget expenses, what % pay increase did we use for employees for this year, or is that not reflected in these numbers yet?
It is not reflected yet.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Perfect.
In fact, I'll get into that in just a minute and tell you all the things that aren't in there yet.
I'm sorry, I jumped ahead.
Oh, you're good.
My bad.
Great question. Great question.
Okay.
So when we look at where our budget numbers come from between operating and personnel, personnel are what gets the job done around here. That's what we're a service-oriented agency as a unit of government. And so 67% of our expenditures go towards personnel costs. The other 33 are going to be operating, what we work off of, live off of, and operate off of for each department. When you look at a 10-year history of our revenue versus our expenditures, I think, it's maybe a little hard to read, but I think the bottom line is you can see there's been a great gap in revenues versus expenditures over the last 10 fiscal years. We've been able to take those monies that we've been, with the additional revenue over expenditures, we've been able to put that into CIP projects for capital and also put into our fund balance to increase that fund balance over time. So another key thing that I'll remind the board that we did not do last year is we didn't plan for a lot of projects last year. So as we get into the CIP in the next couple of weeks, what you'll see is obviously the need to probably pull some money out of fund balance and put it toward some of these capital projects that we've been talking about over the last few weeks. So that's just something that we'll talk about here in a couple of weeks. But overall, again, I think we have a healthy fund balance. We have a healthy budget. We're in good shape heading into next fiscal year. A couple things when it comes to an expenditure standpoint that are not included right now in your budget. One is what Alderman Meyer just asked about, which is merit. There are no merit increases in this year's budget yet. We always evaluate those right up to the last minute. There are no program changes in here. Program changes could be new equipment. It could be new personnel for different operations that we have. Could be new software that we've never used before that we need, to run something with. So again, any of those have not been evaluated yet. Community grants are not in the budget yet. We get those requests from different grantees over the next month or so, and we'll have a workshop in April to talk about those. And then the big one that we didn't do, which was done last year, is our classification and compensation plan recommendations. This is important, I think, to our town to make sure that our employees are fairly compensated. We went through a class comp study last year, right before COVID hit. We were ready to kind of talk about implementing these things, and then COVID hit, and we just kind of put everything on pause. I think it's obviously time that we look at those recommendations, catch those back up. We will have our consultants come to a future workshop with the board and talk through all of those recommendations and all those changes so that we can talk through putting those into the budget, as many things as we can do in this year's budget to implement. So with that is all I had for tonight, but I will be happy to try to answer any questions for the board that you may have.
So David, one more question. So if you go back to the items not included, would you mind, Allison? So for the classification compensation plan recommendations, I'm just going to put out a formal request that we get, I know we're going to have some workshops with the consultant. I would love to have a schedule, and we don't have to have the employee's name, but you can just put employee number 1, number 2, number 3, with the actual detail of what their position is currently paid and what it needs to be paid to be at least at the middle, mid-range, and then 10% above the mid-range. And if the other aldermen don't need to look at that, that's fine. But I'm not interested in everyone's private information, but it's really important for me to be able to look and see if we adjust the salary to the midpoint, or do we adjust the salary to 10% above the midpoint, which is what I'd like to see possibly happen depending on what the recommendations are. I need to know the numbers by employee. So how you want that to present that to me and the rest of the board, that's fine. However, is fine. But we need to know what cost both options would be.
We'd be happy to do that. In fact,
Okay,
we'll be able to show the cost for both of those options, the
Perfect. Thank
differences
you.
in the cost. So that'll give you a clear picture of what the cost difference would be.
Okay. And you can do like just a total number by department. I'm not interested in knowing how much Allison makes. I'm sure she doesn't make enough because she's so valuable. She's amazing. But I do need to know by position if we could kind of work it that way so we know where we're actually increasing the salary. So thank you for that.
Sure, not a problem at all.
Thank you. I have no other questions.
Okay, any other board members have anything, just comments or just in general about general fund revenues or expenditures that you'd like to discuss? If not, then our next workshop, it will be in 2 weeks, and that will be on the CIP. I know we'll have probably a lot of discussion on projects and priorities and things like that. just as a reminder, what we do as staff is we give you our best estimate of how all these projects could kind of float out there and be done in certain years based on timing, schedules, how long it takes for things to work, and our best, obviously, estimate on costs for each of those. And then we'll look at the budget and figure out how much money we have to do these. Some projects we may have to put like off the list, but then have them out to the side and let you decide, okay, I really like this project that you put out to the side actually in the budget, so we can talk back and forth on how we bring things in and out. And sometimes these CIP workshops could take 1-2 meetings at least to get through. So don't feel like we have to get through it all in one meeting, but we should have a pretty good schedule of projects for you to consider next time. With that, that's all that I had. And I want to thank Allison for putting all this together tonight. She did a great job. If the board doesn't have any other, just anything else to discuss at the workshop, we can adjourn until your meeting starts here at 7 o'clock.
Okay, the time is approximately 7 p.m. and the March 11th, 2021 Farragut Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting will now come to order. Tonight we'll be operating on Governor Lee's current executive order number 78, which shall remain in effect until 11:59 p.m. Central Daylight Time. On April 28th, 2021, which at that time it will expire. In accordance with the executive order, it should be noted that we are operating in compliance with TCA Section 4-5-312D by providing real-time live audio-video access on Charter Channel 193, as well as TDS Channel 3, and is also available on the Farragut YouTube channel. Live access to the virtual meeting is made available with streaming. It will be recorded and can be viewed later when posted on the Farragut YouTube channel. During this period of time, all Farragut citizen agenda or forum comments and questions, along with the name and address, should be emailed to comments@townoffarragut.org and should have been received by 12 p.m. the day prior to the meeting in order to be included in the record of that night's meeting. All Farragut Board and Mayor and Alderman meetings will be public notice per Tennessee state law. Our board meetings are also in compliance with TCA Section 8-44-103 with public notice of our posted agenda prior to each meeting. Pursuant to the governor's executive order, all votes taken tonight will be by roll call vote. Per the executive order, I ask that each member speaking to please identify themselves to permit the public to ascertain the identity of the person speaking. And I will now ask the town recorder, please take a roll call attendance vote for a quorum, please.
Alderman Burnett.
Alderman Burnett here.
Alderman Meyer.
Alderman Meyer here.
Alderman Pinchuk.
Alderman Pinchuk here.
Alderman Pavlin.
Alderman Pavlin here.
Mayor Williams.
Mayor Williams here. And also for the record, we ask that all media representatives please respond as well when requested. I think we have the press and possibly the shopper.
This is Michelle Hollenhead. I'm with the Farragut Press.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next we'll move on to approval of agenda. Is there any agenda amendments?
No,
Alderman
sir.
Pavlin, move to approve.
I'll second.
Alderman Pinchuk, I'll second.
Okay, thank you. I'll ask the town recorder to take a roll call vote, please.
Alderman Meyer.
Alderman Meyer, yes.
Alderman Pinchuk.
Alderman Pinchuk, yes.
Alderman Pavlin.
Alderman Pavlin, yes.
Alderman Burnett.
Alderman Burnett, yes.
Mayor Williams.
Mayor Williams, yes. Let the record show that the February 25th, 2021 agenda, excuse me, February. Make that the March 11th, 2021 agenda has been approved. Approval of minutes, I'll now ask for a motion to approve the February 11th, 2021 minutes as presented.
Alderman Pavlin, move to approve.
Alderman
Alderman
Pinchuk,
Burnett,
second.
second.
Okay, I'll now ask for a roll call vote, please.
Alderman Pinchuk,
Alderman Pinchuk, yes.
Alderman Pavlin,
Alderman Pavlin, yes.
Alderman Burnett,
Alderman Burnett, yes.
Alderman Meyer,
Alderman Meyer, yes.
Mayor Williams.
Mayor Williams, yes. Let the record show the February 25th, 2021 minutes have been approved. It will be recorded as official minutes of the meeting. Next will be the mayor's report. Again, I urge everyone to stay with the physical distancing and face covering when out in public. We're finally starting to see a drop in new cases, but we still have folks dying daily. I also urge everyone to please go to the state of Tennessee website and sign up for their vaccine. The eligibility tool is really pretty easy to use. And again, we are thankful that Governor Lee has again extended his executive order for virtual meetings for everyone's safety. At this point, I will yield the floor to Vice Mayor Pavlin for her report.
I have no report for tonight, but thank you.
Okay, any other aldermen have anything to report? If not, we'll move on with tonight's agenda. We only have one business item tonight. That's approval of resolution R21 or 2021-3, resolution adopting the town of Farragut fiscal year 2021-2022 strategic plan.
Thank you, Mayor. This is David Smoke. Just wanted to talk to the public and the board about the strategic planning process that the board just recently went through. Back in 2010, it was our first strategic plan, and we updated that in 2017 with Novak Consulting Firm. When we updated that plan, we had a current vision, mission and values, and critical success factors that the board adopted, and we have revised slightly over that time. But every year when we get together, we talk about the priority initiatives and what are the things we want to get accomplished in this fiscal year coming up, and then think about long-term strategies for reaching our vision and our mission and values. The attached resolution, which I'll read before you, under Resolution R-2021-03, states that whereas the Board of Mayor and Aldermen of the town of Farragut and staff met for a planning session February 19th, 2021, and reviewed the town of Farragut strategic plan, and whereas strategic planning is a disciplined effort to produce fundamental decisions and actions that shape and guide what an organization is, what it does, and why it performs the services and or programs it does. And whereas there are numerous benefits to strategic planning, including organizations can increase effectiveness and efficiency, improve understanding through better learning, make better decisions, enhance organizational capabilities, improve communications, and prioritize future budgetary needs. And whereas the board and staff have identified critical success factors of the strategic plan to enhance the community, which are providing excellent parks, recreational, cultural amenities and programs, building and maintaining the town's infrastructure and assets, enhancing the town's financial position, regional leadership and collaboration, advancing a high-quality built environment, supporting and caring for a committed workforce, and promoting a convenient retail and services destination. And whereas the board has prioritized each critical success factor and set priority initiatives as outlined in the attached document. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Mayor and Aldermen of the town of Farragut hereby adopts the attached town of Farragut strategic plan for 2021-2022 fiscal year. This resolution is duly adopted by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen of the town of Farragut on this 11th day of March 2021. One consideration I want to bring to the board's attention, as staff reviewed the strategic plan over the last several weeks and talked through some of the areas. One was enhancing the town's financial position. And I know the board focused a lot at that time when we got together on tourism and basically our economic development strategic plan. One area I'd like the board to consider adding to as an item D under that item is an additional item to say review economic development initiatives with the Farragut Business Alliance and Farragut Chamber of Commerce. I think we need to make sure that we're getting together with both of those entities and the town and corroborating and making sure we're all working on the right things, that we know what each other is working on. I think we have a pretty good idea, but I think just sitting down and going through that process again will be helpful heading into FY 2022. So I would ask you to consider adding that as an item D under enhancing the town's financial position. And with that, I'll try to answer any questions the board may have.
Okay, David, thank you. And with the motion that will be made, I would like for that to include item D, please.
I'm going to move to approve with the added item number, letter D, under enhancing the town's financial position.
Alderman Meyer, second.
Thank you. Discussion, and we'll start off with Alderman Meyer.
Pass.
Alderman Burnett.
Alderman Meyer, pass. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Burnett.
Alderman Burnett, I don't have anything to add. I'll pass.
Alderman Pinchot.
I just have one question. Are we adding that as item D, meaning number 4, or is it B as a part of item 3? I'm a little confused on what we're doing there.
Alderman Pinchot, under enhancing the town's financial position, under priority initiatives, there's number 1, which is economic development strategic plan. And then that would be an item D, which would be review economic development initiatives with the Farragut Business Alliance and the Farragut Chamber of Commerce.
I got it. I was looking at the wrong page. Got it. Thank you. No other questions.
Okay, thank you. Vice Mayor Pavlin.
Okay. I have a few things. One, with regard to, since we're talking about it, I would broaden D to be a little bit, I don't want to just narrow. We may have other economic development partners out there that we haven't quite identified and formalized a relationship with. And I mean like a realtor representative, or certainly what the schools are doing with their CTE program, and how are we tying all these different economic development partners into our economic development efforts. So instead of, I would broaden out D to say identify our economic development partners and review. What was the rest of what you were saying, David? Yours, I can add that into it.
I had just captured review economic development initiatives with the FBA and Chamber.
Vice Mayor Pavlin, could I just suggest that we keep David's language and just add, because I think we need to name those two entities and then just put and others and then go on, or keep the language, but I do think that we need to name those two partners because we invest in both. So maybe
how about we say this: review economic development initiatives with Farragut Business Alliance and the Chamber of Commerce and other economic development partners.
I would agree with that.
Does that get, because here's the thing, my feeling is we really haven't clearly delineated all the economic development partners we have out there. So does that capture that there needs to be an idea that we're casting out there to figure out, are there other entities we're not working with? Does that?
In my opinion, it does. I mean, in my opinion, it does. Okay. Or put like and the like, or and others, or that's the language I usually use in business, just saying these are the two specific folks we want to partner with, and then like parties.
Okay. I just want to make sure that we're capturing that. That's really kind of the goal, is to make sure that if there's someone out there we need to be, some entity we need to be working with and have a more formal relationship with through our economic development strategic plan, that we're not we're not just being so narrowly focused on the FBA and the Chamber of Commerce. So just as long as we have clarity on that, I'm fine with that. Okay, so I'm gonna amend my motion, but I've got other things to add. So you may be seconding. I don't know. We'll see. So under
So far, you
regional,
got my second.
there you go. Under regional leadership and collaboration, we had during our strategic plan session, we had added in our neighborhoods. And as I thought about it and I looked at our strategic plan, the one thing we're not mentioning, and it is a very important part of our community, is our schools. So I started thinking about that and thinking, okay, this language is still a little rough. So I went back and I wrote, the town of Farragut cultivates relationships with our neighborhoods, schools, and local and regional partners. So what I'm proposing to add to that language is schools and local.
So you got that,
I can
David?
live with that.
I'm
Do you have that?
definitely in favor of that, Vice Mayor Pavlin. I even had it in my notes, even though I passed on my comments. I even had it in our critical success factors. I mean, when you look at the most critical aspects of our community, we've got some great ones listed there, but to me, our schools are foundation. If we don't have great schools, we don't have people wanting to move here. If we don't have people wanting to move here, we don't have commercial success, and the list goes on and on. So I'm very much in favor of adding our schools, and I even thought, at least in my notes, why would they not be under critical success factors? I realize we don't control those schools, but at least identifying them as a very important piece.
Well, and that's why I think it belongs there. And we may want to take it, I don't know, eventually we might want to take out the word regional leadership because it kind of leaves the local part of it out, but and maybe call it local and regional leadership and collaboration. Because we don't control the schools, we are collaborating with them quite, and I think quite effectively in the last couple of years. We've really started to kind of cultivate those relationships with our schools. So it needs to be mentioned somewhere because it is certainly part of one of my goals was to that Education Relations Committee was to beef that up and have it be more effective, which even in the day of COVID has been more effective with the changes. So,
Vice Mayor, I will echo your comments and make the statement. As far as I'm concerned, the schools belong to the town of Farragut. They just happen to be on loan to Knox County. So therefore, it's imperative, I think, that we include schools in this language.
Yeah. Okay, and I have one last thing I wanted to add, but I think it's more going to be a conversation we're going to want to have from a CIP point of view for us, but also for the Planning Commission, is under priority initiatives for advancing a high-quality built environment. I would like to add a fourth priority initiative, because we talked about it in our strategic plan, that we need to investigate a solution for Grigsby Chapel neighborhoods. I know that we have some concerns that we like to stick with traffic control that is warranted by MUTCD, but it wouldn't be the first time that we've kind of stepped in and said, we need to do something here. I think we need to have that conversation with the Planning Commission because they have, Planning Commission has been hearing this for some time and has tossed the idea or the ideas around about Grigsby Chapel. So I would like to add a fourth initiative, solution for the Grigsby Chapel neighborhoods and access to Grigsby Chapel Road.
I would definitely, as a second, support that. Matter of fact, I will tell you that the staff, teachers, and principal at St. John Newman School, residents at Oakley Downs, Prestwick Place, Bentley Park have all heard that it is CIP season here in the town of Farragut and are wanting some kind of mitigation in front of St. John Court along with the mitigation of Fretz Road. So I believe the people who live along Grigsby Chapel have waited quite long enough. I've been extraordinarily patient, and we have got to do something to mitigate the fact that we don't have connectivity with those subdivisions. I think that Grigsby Chapel can be a good example for all of us, proving that connectivity matters. And when we have subdivisions that only have one entrance onto a connector road, we get the hot mess that we have on Grigsby Chapel. So I wholeheartedly support Vice Mayor Paulman's suggestion on item number 4.
And so those were the only changes I had.
Vice Mayor Powell, this is David. Could I maybe, let me say what I think you're saying,
Okay.
in maybe a slightly different way, and hopefully that
Okay.
resonates with the board, is to, under that item 4, develop a traffic mitigation strategy for the Grigsby Chapel corridor. Would that be appropriate?
That sounds wonderful.
Okay, thank you, Vice Mayor. We probably should have workshopped this. We had time. We probably should have used that time to do a little bit of workshop. But anyway, I'll move on. What I've got is, I don't want to lose Ford Regional because we do TML, we do ICSC. We do have Visit Knoxville, which with our tourism program, that are our partners as well. And so I think expanding that is a good idea. And that's all I have. If that is all the discussion, then we can move on and ask for a roll call vote, please. If David's got everything.
Make an amended motion with all those amendments.
If the board would like, I'd be happy to read what an amended motion would be to these items that we just discussed, and then one of you could make an amended motion, and then a second, and then we can get that through the floor. So under enhancing the town's financial position, we added an item D, which is review economic development initiatives with the Farragut Business Alliance, Farragut Chamber of Commerce, and other economic development partners. Under regional leadership and collaboration, we added to the definition of that, the town of Farragut cultivates relationships with our neighborhoods, schools, local and regional partners to ensure it is at the forefront of innovation, process, and service delivery. And then finally, under advancing a high-quality built environment, we've added a priority initiative number 4, which is to develop a traffic mitigation strategy for the Grigsby Chapel corridor.
I'm going to
That's
move
all I
to
have for that.
those amendeds. I'm sorry. I move to approve with the amended additions.
Alderman Myers, second.
Okay. The town recorder, please take a roll call vote, please.
Alderman Pavlin,
Alderman Pavlin, yes.
Alderman Burnett,
Alderman Burnett, yes.
Alderman Meyer,
Alderman Meyer, yes.
Alderman Pinchuk,
Alderman Pinchuk, yes.
and Mayor Williams.
Mayor Williams, yes. Let the record show that the amended resolution R 2021-03 has been approved as stated. Okay, next will be the ordinances. We have one ordinance to review with public hearing tonight. It will be on the second reading. Ordinance 21-05 is an ordinance to amend the capital investment program for the fiscal year 2020-2021 budget. It was passed by ordinance 20-07.
Yes, sir. There are no changes on this ordinance since our first reading. So the motion is to approve ordinance 2105 on second and final reading.
Move to approve. This is Alderman Pavlin.
Alderman Pinchuk, second.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any citizen comments or discussions on this particular ordinance?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. Discussion, we'll start with Alderman Meyer.
Alderman Meyer, pass.
Vice Mayor Pavlin,
Vice Mayor Pavlin, pass.
Alderman Pinchuk,
Alderman Pinchuk, pass.
Alderman Burnett,
Alderman Burnett, I'll pass.
and I have nothing as well. So I will ask the town recorder, please take a roll call vote.
Alderman Burnett,
Alderman Burnett, yes.
Alderman Meyer,
Alderman Meyer, yes.
Alderman Pinchuk,
Alderman Pinchuk, yes.
Alderman Pavlin,
Alderman Poplin, yes.
and Mayor Williams.
Mayor Williams, yes. Let the record show that the amendment was approved on the second reading. Okay, next will be the town administrator's report.
I have nothing to report tonight, Mayor.
Okay, and Mr. Hale's not with us tonight, so he has nothing to report. So we'll move on to citizens forum. Pursuant to the governor's current executive order, we ask that all Farragut citizens' comments be emailed to comments@townoffarragut.org, which must, along with their name and address, be received by 12 p.m. the day prior to the meeting to be included in the record of that night's meeting. They must also abide by the public forum protocol to be read into the record. And I'll now ask the town recorder to please read in all eligible questions and comments with a 5-minute time limit on each subject, please.
Yes, sir. The first one is Robert Gleason at 213 Woodland Trace Drive. As we continue to seek support from the town of Farragut for HB 1397 and SB 0857, we would like to see the aldermen to unanimously pass a resolution in support of these two bills. With overwhelming public input on the cell tower issue of the past year plus, we see no reason why you would not expect to see the aldermen back up what the people of Farragut want, which is, again, protection from the intrusive and unhealthy towers in our neighborhoods. The next one is Jerry Guthrie at 11745 Weathervane. My name is Jerry Guthrie, and I live in Village Green. Please pass a resolution in support of Tennessee House Bill 1397 and the Tennessee Senate Bill 0857. These two bills are best for the citizens of Farragut. They will help protect our property rights and safety. The wireless companies want to install 5G small cell antennas, which transmit millimeter wave radiation in right-of-way of our town, near schools and neighborhoods. We need to protect our homes and families from being exposed to unknown health effects from deploying these 5G antennas. The electromagnetic frequency radiation, the EMF, can harm families, birds, animals, insects, bees, and plants. Long-term exposure to 5G EMF needs to be independently studied to show that the public health will not be adversely impacted by the deployment of 5G. Any 5G antenna equipment which is installed in the town of Farragut should be required to have safety monitoring to ensure the equipment is operating within the FCC safety standards. Our next one is Kathy Sharp at 716 Woodchase. Please consider passing the resolution to support the bills 1397 and 0857 that will give our town some control over the right-of-ways and offer distance protections from the 5G cell towers and associated equipment from residents and schools, and provide much-needed equipment monitoring to prove safety compliance guidelines. And others have concerns about the towers to be further away from homes and schools, require safety monitoring to ensure operating within safety standards. These towers could possibly impact property values significantly and have unknown long-term impacts on health. Our next one is Laura Squires at 236 Woodland Trace. I write to formally request that the Board of Mayor and Aldermen on March 11, 2021, place urgent attention to the topic of SB 0857 and HB 1397 currently in the Tennessee General Assembly. I request the BMA's immediate discussion upon reading this comment and immediate special session to be called to draft and approve a resolution by the town of Farragut to support these bills, and that the solution also includes language to request on behalf of the town of Farragut, Jason Zachary, and Richard Briggs sign on as co-sponsors of these bills. These bills, if passed, seem to offer modifications to the law passed in May 2018 and part of the Tennessee chapter, Public Chapter 819. The Farragut town officials have multiple times over the past 13 months stated is why Farragut has little to no control over radiation, emitting cell towers, poles, antenna being placed in Farragut's residential areas, often within feet of homes. This is how I understand these bills. Please forgive any interpretation error, as I am not a lawyer or litigator, but these bills appear to revise current Tennessee law. Cellular companies can locate millimeter wave radiation generating towers, poles, antennas in the right-of-way in front of your home, and you, the property owner, can do nothing about it. Who would want this? Do you realize many residential area roadbeds in Farragut are 26 feet wide with 50-foot right-of-way from center? This means that 13 feet of what you regard as your front yard is right-of-way, where cell towers, poles, and antennas can go in your front yard of your home, posing unknown impact to the property value and with long-term study data to prove safety. SB 0857, HB 1397 requires placement of radiation-generating cellular towers, poles, and antennas a minimum of 1,500 feet away from homes and schools. It also appears to give power back to the local authorities, like Farragut, to deny the installation of Farragut wireless facilities and right-of-way with extending internet coverage. Wasn't the point of the 2018 Tennessee law to expand broadband? Why then are cell companies triple blanketing over areas with existing high-speed internet while other areas remain unserved and underserved? It also requires an annual inspection of wireless facilities and reports the results to those inspections to the local authority that approved the original application. Do you want radiation generating equipment near your home in unknown numbers without knowledge that they are operating within safety standards? Again, I've watched and listened to over 13 months as Town of Farragut leaders on multiple occasions have said how little ability the town has to protect our homes and neighborhoods due to the current Tennessee law. If any portion of these bills can pass and offer our town a better position to protect our homes and neighborhoods, why would Farragut not immediately pass a resolution in support of these bills? If you respond by saying there are other bills that Farragut may support instead, I ask why Farragut would not resolve to support any bill or multiple bills that would offer the town better standing to defend its right-of-way in neighborhoods. The parity and old adage, isn't a bird in the hand better than multiple 5G cellular tower antennas just beyond our front bushes? Thank you for acting on this urgent request. And that concludes our comments.
Okay, thank you, Allison, and thank you, folks, for sending those in. All good points, and I'll let David Smoke, our town administrator, to give a brief answer on this.
Thank you, Mayor. I think obviously the Board of Mayor and Aldermen know that we have been working closely with Senator Briggs and Representative Zachary over the last several months, even last legislative session, on trying to get some language in a bill that would help give cities more authority over where these are placed in the rights of way, what the size are, the equipment that's on these towers that go up in the different communities and in our rights of way. We have been working with the Tennessee Municipal League on crafting a bill that can be filed. And so right now that bill is House Bill 170 and Senate Bill 149, with Briggs and Zachary both the sponsors of those bills. We are hoping that it's right now it's a caption bill. So if you were to go read the bill, you wouldn't really know what it's all about. But hopefully in the next week or two, they will be filing that bill and amending it to basically make the bill. And in that bill, what we've tried to do with them is get the FCC language consistent with Tennessee state law. Tennessee state law right now basically gives a lot more parameters to cell tower companies to put things in the rights of way than the FCC even gave them. And so what we're trying to do is get that law consistent. The other bills that were mentioned tonight, unfortunately, there's a lot of inconsistencies between what is in that bill versus what the FCC actually allows. And because of that, I think it could be legally suspect. So what we are focused on has been the bill with Senator Briggs and Representative Zachary. TML is behind it. There's cities all across the state of Tennessee behind it. And I think that's the one we certainly want to focus on and try to make sure we can get as much done with that bill as possible, because it will help cities all across the state have more control over their rights of way.
Okay, sir. Sure appreciate that. Does anyone else have anything else to add? If not, then without objection, the March 11th, 2021 Farragut Board of Mayor and Aldermen meeting is now complete and adjourned. Thank you, folks.
Good night, everyone.